Maybe you've been feeling that silent pull, that strange, unexplainable sense that God doesn't want you to walk away from someone. You tried to close that chapter. You tried to silence the feeling, but deep inside, something keeps whispering, "Wait, this isn't over." You've prayed for clarity, but heaven stayed silent. You asked for peace, yet the silence only grew louder. And in that silence, you started to wonder if God had forgotten you, or if maybe you were holding on to something you should have already let go. But what if that silence wasn't rejection? What if it was preparation? What if God wasn't saying stop, but stand still? Sometimes heaven hides answers in silence because God is rearranging something behind the scenes that your eyes aren't yet ready to see. The pain you feel is not proof that it's over. It's evidence that something divine is still being shaped. You see, when God has a purpose that involves two souls, He doesn't rush. He refines. He allows distance, confusion, and waiting not as punishment, but as alignment. And that tug you keep feeling? That's not weakness. That's not obsession. That's heaven whispering, "Hold on a little longer. I'm not finished yet." Every time you try to walk away and something invisible pulls you back, it's because your spirit still recognizes a divine blueprint that hasn't been completed. There's a reason your heart can't rest. There's a reason every attempt to forget ends with a reminder. You're not crazy. You're not trapped. You're being trained to discern the difference between human attachment and divine assignment. When God is still at work, He doesn't allow peace in separation. He allows restlessness, not to torment you, but to protect what's sacred. Because what's meant by heaven cannot be broken by confusion, by distance, or by time. So before you give up, before you assume that silence means it's over, remember this. Sometimes God hides His yes inside what feels like a no. Stay until the end of this message, because when you understand what He's really doing, everything about this situation will make sense. What feels like a closed door might actually be the door to your destiny. And if this message already touched something deep inside you, don't scroll away. That's your confirmation that this is for you. Hit the like button so this word reaches others who are silently fighting the same battle. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because chosen ones don't walk this path alone. And in the comments, write the number 99, not as a number, but as a declaration that you belong to the shepherd who leaves the 99 to chase after the one. Because maybe right now, you are the one He came back for. We live in a world that discards people the moment they stop making us feel comfortable. A world that tells you, if it hurts, it's wrong. If it's heavy, drop it. But the kingdom of God doesn't follow the world's rules. Heaven refines through the very things the world runs from. God often hides His greatest lessons in the friction, in the tension, in the waiting that feels unbearable. Because pressure is not punishment, it's preparation. That person who tests your patience, who triggers your fears, who challenges your faith, might not be in your life to destroy you, but to develop you. Sometimes God places a person in your path not to make you happy, but to make you holy, to strip away pride, to stretch your compassion, to teach you how to love when it's inconvenient, the same way He loves you. When you're a chosen one, your relationships carry weight in the spirit. You don't bond like everyone else does. There's something divine woven in the connection, something that echoes beyond this lifetime. And that's why walking away doesn't feel natural, even when logic tells you it should. Because God is not testing your emotions. He's testing your obedience. Before He blesses the bond, He examines the vessel. Before He lets you carry the promise, He checks if your heart can bear the responsibility. You may look around and see others replacing, restarting, forgetting. But God is whispering, hold your ground. This one matters. You may not see the full picture yet, but there's something sacred about the way this person appeared in your life. It wasn't coincidence, it was convergence. Heaven knew your paths would cross at the exact moment your spirits were ready to trigger transformation in one another. That's why it's not simple. That's why it's not easy. Because easy things don't forge eternal purpose. Every time you try to move on and something invisible tugs you back, that's not emotional confusion. That's spiritual gravity. You're being pulled toward what still carries divine work. And when God still has work to do, He won't allow you to find peace in departure. You can distract yourself. You can bury yourself in noise. But the whisper will remain. Stay. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's divine. God doesn't use comfort to confirm His will. He uses conviction. And when the conviction is strong enough, it breaks logic. It silences the mind and anchors the heart. That's why chosen ones often live in paradox, feeling torn between surrender and persistence, between reason and revelation. But the truth is this: you're not stuck. You're being stationed, positioned exactly where heaven needs you to learn how to love like him. So if every time you say, "I'm done," something in your soul whispers, "Not yet," listen closely. Because that's not weakness. That's alignment. That's the sound of your spirit recognizing unfinished business in the divine realm. And maybe, just maybe, the reason God hasn't released you from this connection yet is because the story isn't meant to end in heartbreak, but in healing. Stay with me, because what comes next will show you what God is really building through this waiting. Maybe you've convinced yourself that letting go would finally bring peace. You told yourself that if you just stopped caring, if you just stopped remembering, the pain would finally lose its power. And for a moment it worked. The noise faded. The ache softened. You started breathing again, but then, in the middle of an ordinary night, something small, a thought, a dream, a song, awakens that familiar stirring inside you. That quiet emptiness. The one that whispers, "You let go too soon." And that's when you realize, what you thought was closure was just a pause. Because when God isn't done writing a story, no amount of human logic can silence what heaven began. You see, there's a difference between peace that comes from escape and peace that comes from obedience. The first one feels good for a moment. The second one anchors your soul forever. When you walk away from something God is still shaping, your spirit feels the dissonance. It starts to echo, not as punishment, but as a divine alarm, gently pulling you back to the place you tried to leave behind. That echo is not weakness. It's spiritual recognition. It's your soul remembering the scent of destiny. And every time you hear it, God is reminding you that what he starts, he finishes. But only if you don't quit in the middle of the miracle. Sometimes you think you've let go, but heaven hasn't. Heaven is still holding that connection in its hands, still weaving threads between your stories while you're trying to cut them apart. That's why even after you move on, you feel an invisible pull, like gravity between two souls still orbiting the same divine purpose. It's not obsession, it's unfinished creation, because real love, the kind born from divine design, doesn't end with distance or silence. It waits inside the mystery until the appointed time arrives. But here's the danger. The enemy knows this too. That's why he'll rush to fill your silence with false peace. He'll whisper, "See? You feel better now. That must mean it's over." And if you're not careful, you'll mistake relief for release. Relief is emotional anesthesia. It numbs you for a while. Release is spiritual permission. It sets you free forever. And until God gives that permission, every attempt to move on will feel like walking against the wind. Real peace isn't the absence of struggle. It's the presence of purpose. It's when the storm doesn't end, but you stop fearing the thunder. It's when your tears no longer taste like despair, but like faith, because you finally understand that even your waiting is sacred. And sometimes that's the test, to stay still when your heart wants to run, to believe when your logic screams, "It's over." So if you're in that place where everything seems quiet again, don't assume God has gone silent. Maybe he's just letting you hear the echo of what still matters. Because unfinished assignments always whisper. They linger. They call you back to what your soul still recognizes as divine. And when God says, "Not yet," obedience isn't about control. It's about trusting that his timing won't waste your pain. Hold on, because the storm you're standing in right now might not be here to destroy what you love. It might be here to purify it. And when the thunder fades and the silence returns, you'll realize something powerful. What you tried to release wasn't gone. It was being reborn. Stay with me, because the next revelation will show you what really happens when heaven fights for what your heart almost buried. Make no mistake, the enemy knows the power of divine connections. He knows that when two chosen souls walk in alignment, something in the atmosphere shifts. Chains break, generations heal, destinies accelerate. So before that happens, he does what he's always done. He divides what heaven is trying to unite. He won't come with horns or fire. He'll come with whispers. Subtle, poisonous, perfectly timed whispers that sound almost like your own thoughts. It's useless. You've prayed enough. They've already moved on. And slowly, without realizing it, you start to agree. You stop praying. You stop hoping. You stop expecting God to move. And that's exactly where He wants you, spiritually numb, emotionally tired, and disconnected from the promise that was once burning inside you. The enemy doesn't fear your heartbreak. He fears your intercession. Because prayer keeps the bridge alive between what is seen and what is coming. Every time you pray, even through exhaustion, heaven rebuilds what hell tried to tear down. That's why the enemy attacks communication, not just with the other person, but with God. He'll make your prayers feel pointless. He'll make your faith feel foolish. He'll make your waiting feel wasted. But chosen ones, hear this clearly. Heaven does not measure the power of prayer by how loud you speak, but by how long you refuse to stop. Even a single whisper in faith carries more weight than 1,000 words of fear. When you stop interceding, the spiritual bridge begins to collapse. But when you keep praying, even in silence, even in tears, heaven moves. Angels are dispatched. The atmosphere shifts. The same God who parted the sea is still capable of parting the distance between two souls that He joined by divine design. Your prayers are not empty words. They are blueprints for restoration. Every tear is a signature of trust. Every sigh is a spiritual command. And while the world may call it obsession, heaven calls it obedience. But here's the truth few understand. The closer the restoration, the louder the opposition. When you're inches away from breakthrough, the enemy turns up the volume of his lies. He will make you believe that silence means abandonment, that delay means denial, that prayer means nothing. Yet, in that exact moment of weakness, heaven is louder than ever. It's just that your ears are being trained to listen by faith, not feeling. That's the secret most never discover. God often hides the miracle in the moment you feel like giving up. So the next time that whisper creeps in, it's useless. Stop praying, smile, because that's your signal. It means something is shifting. It means the enemy is trembling because heaven is too close to losing what he tried to steal. Keep praying. Keep standing. Keep interceding. Because your persistence is building something the enemy can't destroy. And just when it looks like nothing's happening, that's when God begins to rewrite everything. Stay close, because what's coming next will reveal why the delay was never denial. Sometimes the delay isn't about them. It's about you. When God says not yet, it's rarely rejection. It's divine redirection. It's heaven saying, you're still in construction. The version of you I'm building right now can't carry what I've prepared. Before God joins two destinies, He purifies two hearts. He isolates not to punish, but to prepare. He strips away distractions, dismantles illusions, and silences the noise that keeps you from hearing His true voice. That season of loneliness you're in, it's not abandonment, it's refinement. Because destiny connections require clean hands and healed hearts. And God will never allow two wounded souls to meet on the battlefield when they were meant to walk together on sacred ground. Maybe that person isn't ready yet. Maybe their heart still needs breaking to become humble. Their pride still needs pruning to make room for grace. Or maybe it's you. Maybe your spirit still needs to be trained in patience, in trust, in letting go of control. Because God doesn't bless unions that rush. He blesses ones that reverence His process. Divine timing isn't delay, it's design. It's God weaving both stories in perfect rhythm, even when it feels like nothing is happening. The truth is, while you're crying over what feels stuck, heaven is synchronizing timelines you can't even see. When you finally surrender, not to your emotions, but to His will, everything starts to shift. The burden that used to weigh you down begins to lift. The fear that kept you doubting starts to quiet. Suddenly, peace begins to bloom where chaos once ruled. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. Because when God's hand is still on the story, your heart won't feel anxious forever. The anxiety fades the moment you align with the pace of heaven. That peace is His whisper saying, keep believing. I'm still working. Understand this. God never wastes your waiting. Every delay is a sacred classroom. He's teaching you discernment. How to recognize His timing, not just your feelings. He's teaching you how to love without possession, how to pray without panic, how to believe without seeing. And in that process, He's making you become the kind of person who won't destroy what He's about to give. Because what's coming requires maturity, not desire, but depth. There's something mysterious about the way God works. The more you let go of control, the faster he moves. When you stop chasing outcomes and start chasing his presence, he begins to align everything you thought was lost. And maybe that's why he hasn't allowed things to fall into place yet. Because he's protecting you from receiving too early what was meant to last forever. So if it feels like nothing is happening, look closer. Heaven is busy in the silence. God is not ignoring you. He's orchestrating. He's not stalling. He's stabilizing. And when the time is right, he won't whisper. He'll reveal. The same hand that kept you waiting will suddenly open the door. And you'll realize why every "not yet" was really his way of saying, I was preparing you for more than you prayed for. Stay until the end, because the next revelation will show you the unmistakable sign that your waiting wasn't in vain. When God teaches you not to give up, he's not asking you to chase, to beg, or to break yourself trying to prove your worth. He's not calling you into obsession. He's calling you into reflection. Because divine love is never about possession. It's about mirroring heaven. When he tells you to love, he's inviting you to love the way he does. Patiently, silently, faithfully, without expectation, without control, without fear. This is not the weak kind of love the world teaches. This is the love that holds even when the heart trembles. The love that stays pure even when it's unseen. The love that endures because it was birthed in eternity, not in emotion. God's love never manipulates. It never rushes. It never demands proof. It doesn't chase validation or force timing. It moves quietly, like breath, but it shifts everything it touches. When you love like heaven loves, your heart becomes a sanctuary, not a battlefield. You no longer ask, when will they come back? You start praying, God, make them whole. You no longer cling to outcomes. You cling to obedience. Because true love isn't proven by how long you hold on. It's revealed by how deeply you trust God while you wait. And that's the paradox of divine love. It teaches you to stay without controlling, to believe without pushing, to let go without giving up. This kind of love transforms you before it transforms the situation. It matures your patience, purifies your intentions, and awakens something sacred inside you, the ability to love without needing to be seen. Because heaven's love isn't loud. It's lasting. It survives absence. It transcends misunderstanding. It carries a quiet strength that even time can't erase. If it's truly from God, distance won't destroy it. Silence won't weaken it. Delay won't kill it. Because what's born in heaven always finds its way back to its source. Maybe not through the same path, maybe not through the same faces, but always through purpose. And that's where many chosen ones miss it. They think the goal is reunion when in truth, the goal is reflection. To reflect God's love so purely that whoever crosses your path sees him through you. So yes, love them. Pray for them. But don't let your love become your prison. Let it become your ministry. Every act of surrender, every prayer whispered for their peace, every tear shed in secret is not wasted. Heaven records every heartbeat of obedience, every ounce of faith, because in the spiritual realm, love is never lost and it's sown. And when love is sown in purity, it always resurrects in glory. Maybe this season of waiting isn't about them changing. Maybe it's about you becoming. Because the more your love mirrors heaven, the more heaven moves on your behalf. That's the secret. The moment you love like God loves, miracles stop being delayed. And perhaps that's why he hasn't let your heart release yet. Not because he wants you stuck, but because he's still teaching you how to love like he does. Without limits, without fear, without conditions. Stay with me, because what's about to be revealed next will show you how this kind of love doesn't just heal your heart. It activates your destiny. If you're still here, it's because your spirit knows this message was written for you. You didn't stumble here by chance. Heaven led you. Every word, every pause, every breath of this message has been guiding you to this moment. God is saying, don't give up yet. Not because he wants you to suffer, but because he's still shaping what looks unfinished. The silence wasn't rejection. The delay wasn't punishment. It was protection. Heaven has been working in dimensions you can't see. Healing, restoring, aligning. And maybe, just maybe, this story you thought was ending is only pausing while God prepares both hearts to finally meet in his perfect rhythm. So instead of saying, I'm done, say this out loud. God, if it's your will, give me strength to stay faithful. Because when you remain where he plants you, even when it hurts. Even when it's unclear, heaven records it. Every prayer, every tear, every moment you chose faith over fear becomes a seed in eternity. And soon you'll see it. The very pain that made you question everything will become the proof that your love came from God Himself. Don't let the enemy convince you that silence means absence. Silence is sacred. It's where God speaks the loudest to those who dare to still believe. You have no idea what's about to unfold. The story isn't dead. It's being reborn. The ending you feared will become the testimony that sets others free. Because those who endure divine tests are trusted with divine rewards. So rise, chosen one. Wipe your tears. Straighten your faith. This is not your breaking point. This is your becoming point. The kind of love that mirrors heaven never ends in defeat. It ends in revelation. The kind of faith you're showing right now shakes the gates of hell because it refuses to let go of what heaven declared sacred. Now I want you to do something powerful. Not for me, but for your spirit. Go to the comments and write this. If it's from God, I won't give up. Write it as a declaration. Write it as an act of war against doubt. Because every time you declare it, heaven moves. Angels take note. The atmosphere shifts. You break the agreement with fear and step into the frequency of faith. This isn't the end. This is the turning point. You are standing on holy ground, the moment right before everything begins to make sense. Hold your position. The one who promised is faithful. Your endurance is your prophecy, and your faith is about to make the invisible visible.